So what do you think why the crime is increasing in London and why the victims are so young?
There's like youth groups and stuff, and I was talking to a youth group guy and he said a lot of it's got to do with territory.
Two guys approached me on like a motorbike and a lot of friends have had that.
How can you defend yourself in the situation when someone attacks you?
Conservative governments not putting full funding into mental health research and treatment in this country.
Do you think it's right that you are not allowed to carry anything for protection?
That's a big question. Hi, I'm Owen, I'm from Cardiff. I work in insurance.
So today we are going to talk about safety in London, crime, knife attacks. Do you feel safe in London?
Not particularly, no. I mean, obviously the media hypes up a lot of the problems you have in the capital, and being a city as crowded as it is, there's always going to be issues. But at the same time, I think that years of austerity, years of Tory cuts, years of government cuts on policing figures, you're going to feel unsafe. And I don't think that anything's been done seriously to tackle it.
Have you ever had the situation when you had to call police?
No, not personally, but my colleague was burgled yesterday. This is in Cardiff. But she had a very good experience actually dealing with the police. Obviously being burgled isn't great, but she felt that the police were very helpful.
Yasmin Obu, originally from Bangor, moved here for the last 10 years. Performing arts, so dancing, commercial. I was living in like Seven Sisters, and then like loads of guys like pulled out their guns and stuff, and then they were like, that was happening on the high street. But one thing that's amazing is that it's never really directed to you. If there's any kind of problems, it's never really directed. It's always directed at an individual, at someone else.
Who are these people who are involved in these knife attacks?
Youth, isn't it? It's quite young. It's very young, isn't it? They haven't got much to do, not inspiring too much, and just kind of get caught in kind of like into the wrong thing, I think.
My name's Stephen and I'm from London. I'm an account director in this building. I think a lot of people, when they think of the word crime, they're thinking of people, you know, stealing your wallet and that kind of thing. I think of crime as a little bit more complicated than that, in terms of, for example, a lot of financial services organisations are not paying their fair share of tax, which isn't going back into the system. So although that is not a crime because it's tax avoidance rather than tax evasion, I think that from a moral perspective that's a crime. So do I think that London is safe? I mean, I feel safe walking around whatever time of day it is.
My name's Elizabeth. I'm from North London, but originally from Liverpool. I'm a lawyer. I think particularly in my area, one of the big problems is phone snatching. And I've had someone tried to snatch my phone out of my hand. Like two guys approached me on like a motorbike, and a lot of friends have had that. They like switched off the engine and like cruised up to me, so you just don't even know what is about to happen. So it was pretty and like I was out and I was on my own, and it was pretty freaked out, even though I wasn't harmed in any way.
The statistics are increasing here in London, the knife crime, and the victims are mostly teenagers. So what do you think why the crime is increasing in London and why the victims are so young?
Just loads and loads of successive cuts to youth services, no investment in local communities, no investment in community policing, no investment in education, no investment in higher education, further education, vocational skills or training. It's the perfect storm of cutbacks by the people living in their ivory towers, in their gated communities. It's hitting the poorest, and it's hitting the worst, well, the people most exposed to it in society.
Do you think it's also drug related?
Quite possibly, everything is. But then the government doesn't really have a particularly common sense approach to drugs. They don't seem to really take any heed of what their own think tanks show.
And I think that drugs in all forms have been taken for thousands of years. I think they will forever be consumed by humans. But I don't know whether drugs are a reason for crime. I think that it's all mixed up into one. If you're involved in the kind of underworld in various forms, you're going to be more likely to come into contact with people, you know, dealing or taking drugs and so on and so forth. But I don't think that it's the cause of the rise in crime.
What is the reason why there are so many knife attacks lately and acid attacks in London?
Austerity policies from the Conservative government over the last 6 years or longer. I can't actually remember how many years it's been now, but I think that, you know, people don't have as much disposable income as they used to have. I think that jobs are harder to get, and the jobs that are available are a lot of 0 hours contracts. So I think that people, you know, have less money than they did before, and I think that one of the things you're going to get from that instance, or one of the byproducts of that, is you're going to get crime on the rise, because And then coupled with the fact that the police numbers have been cut, I think that a combination of those two things, people have less money, there's not enough police out anymore on the streets, and so it's a pretty unsurprising result of those two things.
The youth have really taken on drug culture quite seriously, and I think like just even like weed and stuff, it kind of makes people a bit more loose than what they normally would be. So probably, yeah. I think like what's making them overreact is I think there's a drug influence, because I was talking to a Jamaican guy who we live in the same area, and like we were saying like a lot of the youth, they are on drugs, and I think when you take drugs, I've taken drugs for a small amount of time, weed, your attitude's very different towards life, so I think that is an influence. But yeah, I don't really know about the business side of things. I just know like when I was talking to one person, I live in like White City at the moment, and they have quite a different, there's like youth groups and stuff, and I was talking to a youth group guy, and he said a lot of it's got to do with territory, kind of like if one person comes to the other place, it's supposed to be quite territorial, not even to do with drugs.
Here in the UK, you are not allowed to carry anything for self-protection, like for example pepper spray. So how can you defend yourself in the situation when someone attacks you?
I can't.
What do you do when a criminal is coming to you with a knife?
Well, I'd probably have to give up everything I've got. So no, I can't defend myself. I wouldn't start carrying something. If you carry something, you're more likely to use it. You see the mess that they have in America carrying weapons, so I don't think that'd be a good idea.
Can you actually defend yourself? Yeah, not really, but it's not random. The thing is, their attacks aren't random. The only thing is, when you see knife crime or when there's actual fights that brawl out, it's like people, if you go on the tube, everyone keeps themselves. So if there's a problem, often it's because someone hasn't kept to themselves. Like that's just the people, they don't start on someone randomly. They're not, a lot of these youth, they don't look at someone and go, whoa, what are you looking at? They're not like that. They're very quite strategic, and when they do attack someone, it's not random. And that's why with the pepper gun and stuff, with the pepper spray, it's kind of like, it's not random, their attacks, and I think that's why they have quite strong laws against it, because it's not actually random when they attack.
I think it's very unlikely for this to just happen to someone completely innocent and not connected with any kind of underworld activity. I think, whilst there might be a random stabbing every now and again, I think it's highly, highly unlikely that the victim would be in no way connected to.
So if the person is like mentally ill or something and he just comes to you, how to protect?
It would just be, I guess it would be you'd revert back to your adrenaline impulses of fight or flight, and I'd say that most people probably just want to run away. But I also think that, if there's mental health related issues, it's certainly not helped by, again, conservative governments not putting full funding into mental health research and treatment in this country. Certainly that's actually been reduced drastically over the last few years, and therefore it's unsurprising that we're now seeing the results of that.
My name's Danielle, I'm from Manchester originally. You have to be very good at fighting or at karate or do something like kickboxing or something that will actually help you protect yourself, but I actually didn't know that you're not allowed to carry a pepper spray, so I guess you just need to be in the right company.
Do you think it's right that you are not allowed to carry anything for protection? For example, pepper gas. You can't kill like anyone with pepper gas, but you can't carry it for your protection. Is it good? Is it right?
Maybe not. Maybe the pepper gas should be something that you should carry on, or you should be allowed to carry on.
I mean, I don't think that it's logical. I don't feel the need that I would need to carry pepper spray. And I'm a young woman who would be, who's often out in the streets on her own. So yeah, it's not something that would give me any extra security.
Do you think that the media shows us the real picture of crime?
No.
Absolutely Why not?
I think that the media forever and will continue to spin things to suit their basis, because if you have a society where they're divided and fighting against each other, no one's really getting together and looking up and going, hold on, we're all getting screwed over by the same people. It's, as long as you've got people against each other based on, I don't know, sexual orientation, the colour of their skin, their religious beliefs, whatever you can create these kind of false narratives, then it's in the media's interest, which are effectively, the media is owned by, largely in this country, about 6 non-domiciled, non-tax paying individuals who are pretty firmly on the right wing from an ideological perspective. So it's not surprising, I think, that they will tend to defend the establishment and the status quo from a political perspective.
The maximum sentence for carrying illegal knife is 4 years. For stabbing is from 10 to 25 years. Do you think these sentences are high enough?
I mean, there's a multitude of different things wrong with, say, the prison systems in this country, with sentencing, with, sort of, say, I wouldn't to say lenient sentencing, but that's frequently bandied around in the media. I do think perhaps that it's not as simple as saying that sentences need to be longer. Government cuts to the prison service, complete lack of ideas from the people top down, it's an issue, and I think that there's a much wider culture that needs to be addressed before we can start talking about sentencing.
No, I don't. I think if you attempt to kill someone, I think you should go down for for longer, 100%, personally. Don't get me wrong, like, every case is individual, right? I think if it was much more harsh of a rule, I think people would definitely think twice about doing it. Like, you know, like states in America, like life for a life and stuff, people don't just jump into crime that easily. When it's more stricter, the punishment, people are a lot more careful, that's for sure.
What about death sentences?
Do you know what? I know a lot of my brother believes in it. I know a few people who believe in it. I know a lot of people actually who I know believe in it. Quite a few people I know think they should bring it back. What's my opinion? The problem is these days it's a crime. You can actually put to law for being offensive to someone. If you say something to offend someone, you can actually go to prison for it. And that's where I'm going. It's getting unreasonable, the law. So if you can end up dying because of, there's supposed to be freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is going, and so I'm going like, if you end up being put into prison for saying something wrong or losing your life or, you know, having an opinion, I don't know the extent of where it's going to go.
Do you think that people can change in prison?
I think that our prisons are overloaded, so I don't think that people get enough assistance, and particularly people with mental health issues. And I do think that many people that are in prison and are committing crimes have mental health problems. I don't think that they have that support. Are they able to get the right attention that they need is probably the question. Yeah, which I don't think that they do.
Yes, in many, many different ways. Probably not the most positive ways. We can see crime isn't going down, sentences aren't really having an effect. It's as simple as that. The figures are there.
Statistics show that 77% of people who come out from the prison after a couple of years go back there. So 77% of people.
That's a high quote.
Maybe they don't change that much.
I think they might have changed, but for example,
if they have the same friends again, like they had before prison,
then they will back. They will get like to old habits and make the same stupid things. But I think the self as a person might get better. But falling back to old habits is like destroying your whole effort you gained in your jail.
Do you think that the person is born with the aim to kill someone, or it's environment that affects them? How much should we blame society and how much should we blame a person?
I think it's different. It's nature or nurture, and I don't think we've ever actually answered that question. So I couldn't say. I mean, if somebody is born with kind of a genetic disposition to violence and crime, if we'd taken them out of that situation and they've been put with a different family, or that could completely change.
Obviously there is the environmental issue, but I do believe that people that have psychological problems generally have them from quite an early age, but it can definitely be more increased by the environment and the people that they're hanging out with, for sure.
That's a big question. I think people are probably less. I think if you look, rather than people being predisposed to kill, they're less empathetic and they care less about the consequence of their actions. And I think that's the problem. Obviously the environment doesn't help.
I'm Lord Raymond Brooks and I'm from Portsmouth. I work on the railway.
What is the best solution how to decrease the crime? What we can do to help?
The best solution is to bring back national service and get the youth doing a proper job. 2 years labour in the services, give them a bit of respect in their country.
I think education, I think talking about morality is a big thing. People want to avoid talking about morality. If there's no wrong and there's no right, and that's not taught to individuals at a basis, foundations, I think people don't think it's wrong anymore to kind of kick someone. Like, I don't know, I think people's ethics have changed, and so
majority of people think that we should increase police on the street. Do you think it can solve the problem?
I think it starts with people's attitudes. I think it starts with at home, what you're teaching your kid. I've been called, you know, racist words by really young kids, and I think, well, what's going on in the home? It's educating people. It's parents. It's down to education, what you put in your kid. I'm not saying you can't always control your kid, but I do think you can. You know, like a lot of these kids aren't doing anything. They're hanging out in the streets. Give them something to do.
I think invest in education and youth, and probably support for families.
I couldn't possibly say. I think that it's not us as a society, I think it's more government. So voting governments which actually will take a proper approach to law and order. And not necessarily people who say about harsher sentences, more prisons, because that apparently doesn't work.